Hello looters, I'm Robert, and in this video we've put together a careful selection of questions we get asked the most. We'll cover things like types of printers and resins, FDM printer, miniature scale, and a few other questions that you guys always ask us. So let's begin with the question we get asked more than anything else. Here at Loot, we like to test a wide variety of printers so we can validate our files across different setups. Since our models come pre-supported, it's really important for us to make sure they perform well in different situations with different machines and resins. That said, we do choose a main printer to streamline our production process. In the past, we used Saturn II, but those have now been replaced by the elegant Saturn III Ultra. It's a very reliable printer with a great build volume, and it's also easy for us to find parts and support for it here in Brazil where we're based. But just to give you a full picture, here are all of the printers we currently use. For resin printing, we work with models from Elegoo, including Saturn III, Saturn III Ultra, Mars 4 Ultra, Mars 5 Ultra. For Anycubic, we use Photomono 2 and the Photomono 5S. We also use printers from Uniformation like the GK3 Ultra, GK2, and GK3, as well as the Nova 3D Whale 3 and 4 Ultra, the Frozen Sonic Might 8K, and the Creality Hallowed Mage S. Whew. Now, when it comes to filament printers, we've tested a few different brands over time, but we ended up building a closer relationship with Bambu Lab. Today, we use their printers to validate our FDM-ready models. Currently, our lineup includes A1 Combo, the P1S, and the X1 Carbon. Now, one of the most common follow-up questions we get is about entry-level printers. If it fits your budget, going for a larger printer can give you more flexibility. It allows you to print more pieces at once and also handle bigger models when needed. At the same time, you don't necessarily need the latest release to get great results. In many cases, slightly older models can come at a lower cost while still delivering a very similar printing quality. For example, something like the Saturn III can produce results that are very close to newer versions like the Saturn IV Ultra. And the same idea applies to other brands and models as well. So, if you're looking for a more affordable entry-level option, one of the printers we often recommend, and even using our free 3D printing course, the 3D Printing Hero, is the Anycubic Photomono 2. It's one of the most affordable options on the market, and it still delivers really solid results. Another important factor to keep in mind is support. Having access to customer service, replacement parts, or even a local community of users who can share their experiences can make a big difference, especially when you're just starting out. On the FDM side, the most affordable option from Bambu Lab is the A1 Mini. It's a great printer, but its smaller build volume can limit the size of some prints. The A1 Combo kit also allows for multicoloring print. And if you want to push for higher quality, using a good filament along with a 0.2mm nozzle is definitely something worth trying. And since we're talking about resin and FDM printers, you might be wondering whether Loot's miniature actually work with both technologies. You're definitely not the only one asking that, because that's one of the most common questions we get. Our models are primarily designed, tested, and prepared for resin printing, unless there's a specific FDM version available for that file. That doesn't mean you can't print them in filament, but there are cases where certain details, especially thinner parts, will only work properly with resin. When printing in FDM, you will also need to generate your own supports in the slicer, and depending on the model, that process can introduce some challenges or imperfections. So in general, if a model doesn't have an FDM tag on our website, it means it wasn't optimized or tested for filament printing. Most of the time, FDM-ready files are big objects, modular terrains, and props. Now, when it comes to quality, it's important to keep expectations realistic. Resin printing naturally delivers smoother surfaces and a much higher detail, while FDM prints tend to show more visible layer lines, so comparing the two of them directly isn't exactly fair. For smaller miniatures, especially in 32mm scale, resin will almost always give you better results, especially if your goal is painting and achieving a more professional finishing. That said, FDM has come a long way and it's definitely capable of producing great results nowadays, especially for larger models. It's also lighter and more cost-effective in many cases. Either way, if you want to keep improving your print quality over time, the best advice we can give you is leave a like on this video and subscribe to the YouTube channel so you don't miss anything. No, seriously, we put out a lot of high quality content, just take a look around. So remember to like, hit the bell and subscribe to our channel. Now going back, we've actually tested 32mm miniatures in FDM on this channel, comparing them side by side with resin prints. So if you're curious about what's possible, that's definitely worth checking out and using it as inspiration for your own tests. The link will be on the description as well. Since we've mentioned that you need to place supports on the slicer if you're going to print in FDM, another common question is: when we first started at Loot, we used a Cheeto box, which is why some of our older bundles still have supports and projects made in it. Over time, we transitioned to Lychee, which works really well for us, but both slicers deliver great results whether you're using free or paid versions. So, despite the fact that some printers do come with their own slicing software, it's totally viable to use either of these options, since they're comparable with most printers on the market. Now, for filament printing, there are plenty of good slicers out there too, but if you're using a Bambu Lab printer, Bambu Studios is an excellent choice. And if you're using a different machine, Orca slicers offer pretty much the same features and is a great alternative. This is something a lot of people ask us, but the base size is actually still 28mm, so they work perfectly fine with D&D and other tabletop systems. What changes is the scale of the miniature itself, although you'll be able to use our minis on any standard D&D grid since the bases follow the usual sizing. Because we aim for more realistic proportions, using a slightly larger scale reduces the need to thicken smaller parts just to make them printable. We choose 32mm because it gives us a better balance between keeping the classic miniature vibe while also delivering a higher level visual quality. It also allows more detail, better proportions, and a more impactful presence on the table. This way, we avoid things like a paladin with an oversized sword or a ranger with an over-thick bow that looks out of proportion. And we all want our tables to look cool, don't we? Most of our resin models are cut to fit smaller printers around 6 inches, like the Anycubic Photo Mono 2 that is used in our free 3D printing hero course! Merchant intended. That said, some larger models would require too many cuts to fit on smaller machines, so in those cases we designed them with mid-sized printers in mind, around 10 inches like the Elegoo Saturn lines. When it comes to FDM printers, even though newer machines like the ones from Bambu Lab have a slightly larger build volume, we usually keep our models within the 220mm build area. That way, even if you're using an older printer like an Ender 3, you will still be able to print our models without any issues. First things first, if you don't know who Aizatal is, shame on you! Now, we actually provide 2 taverns and a can holder as part of our welcome pack, and all of these models can be printed in FDM and follow the same size guidelines we've mentioned earlier. The larger tavern is the only one that is designed exclusively for FDM printing. The smaller tavern, on the other hand, can be printed on smaller resin machines without much trouble. The can holder you get in your 3rd month of subscription will require a mid-sized printer like the Elegoo Saturn lines. Since we provide our models in 2 different scales, most of the 32mm pieces can be printed on smaller printers, while the 75mm versions, especially for huge and gargantuan models, will only fit on larger machines. Alright, so now you might be thinking, okay, I know which printer works for me, but what about resin? I have no idea how that works. Don't worry, we've got you covered on that too. We've tested a lot of different resin over time. For smaller miniatures, if you're looking for more durability, it's usually worth going for a strong resin, like TGM for Umber Labs. Now, Other options like ABS-like resins or frozen RPG resin also offer increased strength without a significant jump in cost, and you can find similar properties across different brands as well. That said, we do have a resin that we use most of the time, which is Frozen Aqua Grey 8K. We like it mainly because of its print quality and color, which works really well for our production workflow. It has some advantages over market standard resins, and it still behaves in a very predictable way, which makes it great for testing prints, removing supports, and finishing our models. Now, if you are one of our subscribers, we also have a couple of resin options available with a discount in the exclusive member savings section of our reward store, so it's definitely worth checking that out. Some models, especially small 32mm miniatures with thin and fragile parts, may require more resistance or flexibility, and that's when choosing the right resin really makes a difference. In the end, the right choice comes down to two main factors: the cost of the resin and the application. If you're just getting started, standard resins from brands like Anycubic or Elegoo are great options. They offer a good balance between price and print quality, and they're more than enough for beginners getting into the hobby. When you're starting out, it's usually better to stick with a more common resin and take the time to understand how it behaves for your specific use. In some cases, a standard resin might work perfectly fine, but testing and comparing it with other types can help you make even better decisions over time. By using transparent resin. No, just kidding. Well, not really. That said, it can be trickier to get clean supports when working with clear resin. One tip that we have is to lower the UV light intensity, which means you need to recalibrate your exposure setting, but it usually leads to better results. It's also important to use resins that are formulated to stay clear after curing, since some of them tend to yellow over time. And if you want more tips on how to improve the finish of transparent prints, you can check our tutorial video on the channel where we go deeper into that. If you still have some questions, leave them in the comments, because chances are a lot of other people have the same ones and we can cover them in future videos. And now that you have a better idea of printers, materials, and what to expect, take this as your sign to just start 3D printing. Also, don't forget, if you want to go deeper, make sure to check out and join our free course 3D Printing Hero. The link will be available in the description. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our new content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.